I always forget to promote thewalkcar.com. No, this is why I forget to promote it. YouTube.com slash at the watt car. That's our video. And there you can make comments about our podcast or whatever you would like. I mean, you can email us. I'm not going to give the email address. You can find that if you want to on thewalker.com. That's hidden in there somewhere. But Ed, somebody made a comment in the last couple of weeks about something I said about Cadillac getting rid of. I suggested Cadillac Celestiq should not follow the same design
Okay.
aesthetic as its others because this is a more than $250,000 car.
Hmm.
And somebody commented that this was the dumbest idea. My idea was the dumbest that they'd ever heard in their entire life, which I got to say, you've lived a wonderful life if that's the dumbest thing you've heard. But am I wrong? Am I right? I don't know. Go to youtube.com slash at the walk car and tell me, am I completely wrong? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, also watch the episode. I think it was the last week's episode, week before. I don't remember anymore. So you have to watch all of them, is what I'm getting at.
Who are you?
Me, I'm Phil Royle. I am one of the podcast co-hosts here, and I've been doing this for, we'll just say 5 years.
There you go.
It's wrong, but I'll say that. In some kind of automotive journalism content creation. No, that's yours.
Yeah, it's
I keep
potato,
stealing.
potato.
We've become one person. Ed, we've been doing this for too long is the answer. And I also direct people to thewalkcar.com/store where you can help support the blog and the podcast by merchandising.
Merchandising, I like it.
Merchandising our merchandising.
New portmanteau.
Your turn.
Support thewalkcar.com by merchandising.
Yes.
Ed Sanchez, I want to say 10 plus years, automotive content creation moderation, current day job, automotive electronics industry analyst, and the Watt Car co-founder and contributor.
And apparently somebody that spotted neon markers driving around, or highlighters, I guess, driving around.
So, excuse me, I found I'd seen the pictures a lot, and even in pictures, I was like, I don't know if this works. I finally saw one in person. I saw a Genesis GV60 with that highlighter yellow paint.
I've seen a couple of those.
I'm like, I don't know. Do you
So
have strong feelings on this one way or the other?
I don't think it's bad. I think it's fine.
Mm,
But I think it would be fine if it said like Honda Civic on the back of it and
yeah.
not Genesis.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the point. So that type of color I feel could work if you're talking about a premium expensive car. I think it could work on like a Corvette or a Lamborghini or something like that. Okay. The GV60 is just like a compact to mid-size crossover. So I think it's kind of weird for that market segment. And I it seems like Genesis is trying to go more upscale, more kind of Lexus Mercedes-ish kind of. And I don't know if this really fits with that. Like to your point, it looks a little more boy racer.
Yeah. I mean, it could be, like you say, it could be
Yeah.
very high end
Yeah.
sports car. It could be, but it's enthusiast vehicle. And
Yeah.
the GV60 just ain't
I mean,
that.
it's not slow. I mean, like a lot
No,
of EVs, it's plenty quick,
I
but
don't think you're going to have GV60 car club meetups where you've
I
got
mean,
like 20 of
watch,
these.
watch. We're
What?
getting
Yeah,
a few
watch.
comments on this. Hey, I
That's the
have a
dumbest thing I've ever
GV60
heard.
club. We do track days all the time. So anyway, just my opinion. If you have a different one, go to the youtube.com/ at the walk car and tell us why we're wrong. Anyway, moving
There's going to be
on.
a lot of that going on this week.
Good.
Because
We
we're
love
about to get a
feedback.
lot wrong.
So, so we're gonna get a little nerdy here. So we're gonna talk about battery chemistry. So GM
Mm.
just showed off a new one, but it's kind of an evolution of NMC, nickel, manganese, cobalt. It's called lithium manganese rich. So we got a new battery acronym, LMR. Um, so they showed off these concept cells that they plan. I guess they plan on rolling them out in 2028. So like I said, it's a variation of NMC, but with less nickel and cobalt, so less exploitation of child labor in Africa. So, and more manganese, which I guess is more abundant and cheaper. So they're claiming 33% higher energy density than current LFP cells, but at a lower cost. I find it kind of interesting. They're comparing them to LFP and not NMC. So I'm guessing the delta between current NMC is probably less. But regardless, lighter, better energy density. I can tell you the Hummer SUV and the Silverado EV could definitely use lighter.
Do you think this is why they dropped the Ultium name? Do you think that they thought they overthought things and that they thought, oh, people that will connect the Ultium name to certain battery chemistries, and here we're going to introduce a new battery chemistry, and everybody will think Ultium's the same thing, and that it's actually something new? Do you think it's that, or do you think it's got nothing to do with that, and none of this will come to fruition because every single time somebody comes up with new battery chemistry, quote unquote, it's always 30%, 25%, 50% more efficient, and it never is. Never, never is.
Okay.
Or
So
else
I'm
we'd
gonna
have
speak.
1,000-mile EVs right now because
Yeah.
everybody claims this.
So I'm going to speak to you as a current GM owner. I myself am a past GM owner. So you remember the Vortec?
Hmm.
See, what's funny
I
is
think it says that on my engine, doesn't it?
yes, it does.
Yeah.
So for a while, GM was basically slapping that on almost every engine they made was a Vortec something.
Hmm.
So people, I mean, it seems like for a while people were using the term Vortec like Coyote for the Ford, you know, overhead cam V8 or, um, whatever. The Vortec is just a brand name. It doesn't mean anything. And I kind of felt that way about Ultium. It didn't. It was just. I feel like some Manhattan focus group pitched this to GM and the board said, oh yeah, that sounds great. Yeah,
Yeah.
Ultium batteries sounds advanced and futuristic and
Yes.
you know and it's like I really don't care one way or the other. I think probably my guess is in focus groups Ultium wasn't really resonating with people. They're like, what does this even mean? So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what they're going to call this, what kind of brand they're going to give it, but I I think honestly people don't really care. They just want them to go a long distance, charge fast, last long.
I had this conversation with you, as we do, about EVs a while back,
Yeah.
and it was around. There was a It was like a showroom in Japan or some in China that was showing off the different. It was like
It was
all the different types
CATL
of cars. Yeah,
or
it
was
was something like that,
yeah.
and had all the different cars, different brands, but they all had their battery. And I equated that to somebody going into a showroom and saying, "I'm really looking for a car with a Bosch fuel pump." Like it
Well, it
just
reminds me,
doesn't
okay,
matter.
being
Nobody
being
cares.
the being cynical Gen Xers, do you remember the Microsoft stores that were once in like every mall in America?
Yes. Yeah.
And this was before, I don't know, it was their attempt to try to compete with the Apple store, but it just never really caught on because it was just kind of a hodgepodge of different products
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
from different brands, and it's like,
It was exactly what CATL was doing in China.
so anyway,
Yeah.
speaking of branding, so this is
Branding that doesn't matter.
branding that doesn't matter. Yeah. So, and this has been kind of beat as a dead horse in the automotive blogosphere, but how stupid a name that BZ4X is.
Yeah. None of us got it. None of
Yeah.
us got that.
So I guess Toyota got the memo. So they're dropping the 4X. So now it's just BZ, but they're still being kind of cutesy with it because it's lowercase b, big Z. So I guess going forward, that's how it's going to be branded. I don't know if globally or just North America, but anyway, so the new BZ, we already discussed this. I think it was in episode 215, and at the time that was just for the global model, but now I guess they've made it official for the U.S. So I'm not gonna. A lot of this is a recap. 74.7 kilowatt hour battery pack, claim maximum range of 314 miles in the front wheel drive model. Native NACS charging port and plug and charge capability. So the big news here is all-wheel drive, and again, this is a recap. Power goes from 214 to 338 horsepower.
Which is a nice
Pretty,
bump.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
pretty significant increase. Claim 0 to 60 time of 4.9 seconds. Says expected U.S. dealerships in second half of 2025. So within a few months. But this next related tidbit interested me more. I mean, maybe because I'm just interested in obscure stuff that nobody cares about. But do you remember the CHR?
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah.
I
Let
think
me.
I guess the best analogy I could make it was kind of Toyota's answer to the Nissan Juke, kind of.
Yeah. No, this was like a very sporty looking mini SUV crossover thing.
Yeah.
It was like it wanted to be a sports car, but it wasn't really a sports car. I
Well, it
like
was.
them. I never drove one. I never got inside one, but from the outside,
I
I
thought
thought
they
they
looked
looked fine.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought they were
Um,
very, very for its size segment and what it was. This was a hot little car.
yeah. So basically, they dropped that in 2018. It was effectively replaced by the Corolla Cross.
Hmm. And
Um,
nobody noticed when they dropped it.
yeah. So even though I thought it was cool looking, but
Yeah.
I guess it really didn't
It
catch the
just
world on
shows
fire.
how automotive journalists and people like an enthusiast, we just don't have our fingers on any pulse whatsoever when it comes to real
No,
world
if
suppliers.
everyone listened to us, everyone would be driving brown diesel manual wagons. I guess that's kind of the trope or meme or
Yeah.
whatever it's called. Okay, so big news with this. So this is effectively going to be a variation of the BZ, but like smaller and sportier a little bit. So a lot of the same specs, same battery pack. It's going to be offered exclusively in all-wheel drive for the US. So like the new all-wheel drive BZ, 338 horsepower, which is literally I think double what the ICE version had when it exited the market. So pretty big power bump, I'd say. Um, they're estimating a 290-mile range for this, like the BZ, NACS port, 120 240-volt portable charger, 150 kilowatt DC fast charging. Like I said, not quite to the level of like the Ionic 5, but good enough. So anyway, so this kind of shows me Toyota starting to get somewhat serious about EVs. That they're not. I felt the first gen BZ4X they just kind of phoned it in. It was kind of a checkbox, like, okay, we did an EV, yay,
Yeah, it was one step away from
compliance car.
a compliance car.
It was a little better than the MX-30, but only just.
Yeah. Which ironically, the power bump that they've just given the BZ is
Yeah,
about the MX-30. The power delta is about what that
yeah,
car outputted completely, and that's what they've added to the now called
yeah.
BZ.
So I actually, like I said before, with the specs on this, the new, the upgraded BZ, I would say it's almost kind of a Model Y competitor. And so a lot of people who, are interested in EV, don't like Elon, don't like Tesla, whatever, you know, I think it could be a pretty tempting option for some people.
There are a
Um,
few of the BZ4Xs and Solteras in my neighborhood, and
mhm.
it's not a bad looking vehicle.
No, it's
People
fine.
seem to
Yeah.
like them, and and there really was nothing wrong with them. You couldn't really do road trips effectively,
Hmm.
but day to day,
Yeah.
I think they
But
were
with these new
fine
upgrades, I
cars.
mean, that basically addresses most of the complaints people
Yeah.
had.
Yeah,
Um,
we'll have to see in usability because that was where the last generation kind of had problems was the actual usability. They
mhm,
limited fast charging,
mhm,
at least on the early ones, where it
mhm,
was like you could only do like 3 fast charging sessions per day, something like that, and
mhm,
it would
mhm.
throttle
Throttles
down
it.
to
Yeah.
like level 2 levels. And there was all this stuff that was probably battery protection. They didn't know what they were doing. As time progresses, you get better vehicles.
Mhm.
That's part of the problem that I have with recommending EVs to anybody
Is it's
this
changing so
early on,
fast. Yeah.
is it's changing so fast. And if you just wait 10 years, say you wait 10 years, it will be remarkably different from what it is right now, like
Yeah.
almost unrecognizable. You will look at today's vehicles as the Wild West compared to
Or
what,
Model Ts.
yes, compared to what we're going to see in the next
Yeah.
decade.
Yeah.
You're going to have these new battery chemistry. Maybe one of them will have 30% more efficiency somewhere
Yeah.
along the way.
Yeah. So anyway, kind of interesting. I think Toyota's finally getting the memo, and they're like, if we're gonna do this, we better be serious about it.
Hmm.
So anyway, so this is another. So what was it? I can't remember. It was 22 or 23 when Ford announced like they were gonna adopt the Tesla NACS
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
that's
don't
how long
remember the
it's been.
year, but
Anyway,
it was Ford announced it and then everybody
yeah,
dropped
and then
like
everyone
dominoes.
else
Yeah, it was
did.
GM and then it was just like it was like Death Watch but for NACS coming to life watch.
Yeah.
I don't really know the equivalent. Every week there was
Yeah, it was
another
like
company.
another domino fell. It was like
Yeah.
boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
So
Those were exciting times.
yeah. So when I first read this, I kind of slept on it. I'm like, oh, yeah, whatever. It says Mazda adopting NACS. And I was like, well, didn't they already announce that?
Hmm.
But then I
And
read it
on what?
again.
And on what?
The MX-30, yeah, that's ship has sailed.
Yeah.
No, but I reread it, and this is actually interesting. So this is not for North America. They are adopting NACS for Japan, for their home market. So this is significant in that this is the first. I don't know if you'd call Mazda major OEM, but I mean relatively, um, that has said they're going to adopt it outside of North America. So Tesla, I guess, first got into the Japan market in 2014 with the Model S, and they started setting up supercharger stations with, at the time, was called the Tesla plug or Tesla charger. They later kind of rebranded to NACS, but anyway. Um, so Tesla's always had in Japan, but
So
this is the
they've
first.
run NACS in Japan. Like that's
Yes,
been, it's not like in Europe where it's CCS2.
no.
Yeah.
Tesla's always been NACS, if you want to call it that, in Japan.
Okay.
So Tesla has always used their kind of proprietary, at the time, plug in Japan. So this is the first OEM that's committing to this for the Japanese market. So this makes me wonder if J3400 might ultimately become the de facto standard in Japan. Now, not to go too down the rabbit hole with this, but originally it was Chatamo, and that was like their big deal. But now Chatamo, I don't want to get too into it. The Chatamo is kind of dying. I mean, they
It
will
had its
protest.
day.
They will protest that vigorously because they were trying to align it with the Chinese standard, but then China and Japan kind of
There's
aren't
too
like
many
best
limiting
buds
factors.
right now.
It was not
But
Ford compatible. It
yeah,
had some interesting things, but you couldn't progress into bigger battery packs. You couldn't progress into a variety of things.
yeah. So you smiled. What are you smiling about?
That in this scenario, who was the first company that announced NACS in America, the outside of Tesla? Who was the first company?
Aptera.
So in this scenario, Mazda is the Aptera,
Yeah, but look what happened with
and
the rest
has
of the market in North
yes,
America, at least. But
yeah. Arguably, Mazda does have like a sedan EV on the road. Oh no, is that in China, not
in
in
China,
Japan?
yeah.
Is that in Japan as well, though, or is it?
Maybe they're selling it in Japan now,
They
but for sure in
might
China.
Mazda might have more EVs on the road than Aptera did at the time when it announced that it was going to NACS. But there's a lot of crossovers here between Mazda and Aptera when it comes to EVs and NACS adoption. That's just what occurred to me is wow, Mazda's following the same path.
Well,
They're
yeah,
following the playbook that Aptera followed.
yeah, but I mean, like I said, the funny thing is, ultimately the rest of the market followed suit, at least in North America.
Yeah,
So
it was the right decision.
I think the big boot to drop on this would be if Toyota said, we're going to adopt an ACS for our JDM, our Japan market cars.
Yeah.
I would say if Toyota says that's game over, that will be the standard, period. But until that happens, interesting. I'm sure Toyota's looked at it, but and Mazda and Toyota do have a relationship. So I don't know, but I would say this is interesting. But the big thing will be if Toyota decides to adopt it.
Yeah, we need
Anyway,
other shoes to drop. And I would say potentially Nissan, but I don't think we're going to talk about this, but
yeah.
Nissan's on its way out, so
Well, we'll see. Yeah.
potentially.
So anyway, going across the Sea of Japan to China. So you remember, okay, the Xiaomi SU7, that's the like Porsche Taycan knockoff
Yes. Yeah. No,
that
awesome looking
everyone was
thing.
going
Yeah.
crazy about. Jim Farley said, "Oh, it's great, I love it," blah blah
Yep.
blah. And then they came out with the Ultra model, which is like the 1500 horsepower plaid killer, this and that, and everyone was started going bananas about that. Well, so there's a $6,000 option for a ducted hood on this. and it turns out they're non-functional. And I guess this kind of made the rounds on Chinese social media, and now there's like this big outrage about it. Like, not so much. I mean, I don't know if the bigger outrage is that they're fake or that they paid $6,000 for it. Um,
I mean, it looks, I'm assuming this car has a frunk, and it looks like
yeah,
the hood would just simply eat into that. It's like these
the
two,
ducts,
like
yeah.
it's like this big pig nose thing on the front
Hmm.
that it looks like the air's going to scoop up
And just
through
kind of go, kind of
through
like
a
the new Charger,
radiator, whatever cooler,
somewhat.
uh,
Yeah.
and then out the hood, which is a,
Hmm.
it's a proven race car
Hmm.
design, whatever.
Hmm.
Uh, but if it doesn't work, then it kind of sinks down a little bit. That's got to be less efficient for aero. Although nowadays they're doing some voodoo magic with the aerodynamics of cars. I don't know how they're hitting like 0.19 coefficient of drag on vehicles that you look at and you're like, I don't see how you're doing that, but they're managing to do it. I mean, not that anybody's testing that coefficient of drag. We're all taking their word for it. But
Hmm.
you look at the efficiencies that they've got, yeah, sure, whatever. So maybe this isn't as inefficient of a design of a hood as it initially looks, but the fact that it's not functional and $6,000, the aftermarket could take care of this for 500, 800 bucks, certainly less than a
Yeah.
thousand for a hood.
I've long kind of, and the whole automotive industry has been guilty of like fake little gingerbread. I remember, I can't even remember what generation. Well, the Mustang's kind of a serial offender with this. Is like little scoops and different things either on the side or on the hood that were non-functional, um, and people didn't seem to care. I mean, I don't know. I just I'm just generally not a fan of fake styling stuff that infers a certain functionality or performance or whatever, but it's really doesn't do anything. I mean,
A lot of everything that you see is fake.
yeah.
Like a lot of everything is that you see on cars. They'll be little ducks, and even if they're functional, they're not really doing anything on the street. You
Hmm.
got little wings that pop up at 35 miles an hour. That ain't doing nothing.
Hmm.
If it creates any decreased lift, it's
Hmm.
doing it at like 130 miles an hour. It's not doing
Yeah.
it at 35 when it comes up. So there's a lot of the automotive industry that is for show and pomp and whatever. They're just trying to look cool.
Hmm.
So, and this car has a wing on the back and it's got little splitter things on the front. And I don't,
Like pizza pan size brakes. I mean,
yeah, I don't really know if I'm against things that are just for looks. This one's pretty extreme because this is a pretty huge thing. But look at or did
it's
you,
more
was
so
this,
the price. If it was
yeah,
included
that's
and that
ultimately,
was it, I'd be like, I whatever. This is a
yeah,
weird choice, but I don't care.
yeah.
But I think the fact that, I mean, this is even in China. I think this is like $100,000 car. So it's not a cheap car to begin with. But I think the fact that they had to pay extra for this and it's non-functional. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I get it. I would have gotten it without it, because I prefer just very clean, kind of simplistic lines. So if there was an option, just get the standard hood and same performance, same functionality, I probably would have gotten that. But anyway, still in China. So this is also Xiaomi related, I guess, but this is not like Xiaomi corporate. This is a Xiaomi backed company called JMEV, and they have a model called the Small Sports Car SC01. Just rolls right off the tongue. Um, so this is smallish, a little bigger than the ND Miata, 161.7 inches, quite a bit heavier than the current Miata, about 3,000 pounds. But for an EV, that's pretty light. Um, so what was interesting about this is kind of the architecture of it. So if you remember the original Tesla Roadster, it didn't really have like the skateboard battery pack. It kind of stacked them behind the passenger compartment. So it was almost kind of like a bulkhead between the passenger, I guess the passenger compartment and the trunk was battery packs. So similar kind of configuration. Um, so dual front and rear motors. They're claiming 429 horsepower, 0 to 60 in A little under 3 seconds, 323-mile range on the China CLTC cycle. So probably, I don't know, maybe like 250 or 270 EPA, if I had to guess. And only 32,000 in China, that is. But being a Miata owner and fan of small light sports cars, I'm kind of curious on your take on this.
So looking at the link that hopefully I remember to include in the show notes, uh, the Autopian, I think is what you,
Yeah.
yeah, that's where you sent that. Is it interesting because it looks like it is a tube frame
Mm-hmm.
vehicle with inboard suspension front and rear.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess the body just bolts on top of that. So it's kind of like, I mean, you could just strip the body work off of it, presumably, and make this like an electric aerial atom,
Like
which,
a Freiburger special.
yeah, I like, I like it. There's nothing wrong with this.
Yeah.
It seems good, a nice enthusiast vehicle at a price that
For that
is
price with
never
those
going to
specs.
happen. Uh,
Well, I mean, in China, and
yeah, in
I don't know
China,
about the
but
US, but
yeah. Uh,
especially with, 100 or I can't even, whatever the tariffs are now.
and I didn't read this article, but I just saw it pop up
Hmm.
this week, was that the Miata is something like the least driven car in America of a certain
Even more than
whatever
the
it was.
Corvette. I thought the Corvette was.
It so I guess people drive their Miata less than like any other car. Now I didn't read the article. I read the like the first bit
So
of
it's
it.
basically a third
But
car.
yeah, it's a third car. And that's exactly what this would be. And we've had this
Hmm.
conversation about other like enthusiast vehicles like AEM with its Mustang conversion that
Hmm.
they'd
Hmm.
done with Tesla parts and a bit of a minivan thrown in there. That it really didn't matter if it charged slow. It didn't matter if it had a short range. It was a weekend car. It was a fun car. It
Hmm.
was not a daily commuter. And that's exactly where this falls, I think.
Hmm.
It'd be nice if it weighed less. The acceleration's nice. Price sounds great. Like everything about this sounds good. And it doesn't matter if it's not super efficient.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter. A lot of things don't matter on it
Hmm.
as long as it's got a good weight balance and it
Looks
drives well
cool.
on weekends
Yeah.
and it looks cool. Like that's what this is. This
Yeah.
is exactly what the Miata is. This is a weekend car that you will barely ever drive.
Yeah. So chances of us seeing it in North America, I'd say close to zero. But
Yeah.
anyway, a man can dream. Um, let's see. What do we want to talk about any of this other stuff, or do you want to wrap it?
We've got a minute or two.
Let's see. Da, da, da. Uh, the we could talk about the Mercedes 1,000 horsepower AMG super sedan, or um, EPA wanting to fix auto stop start, even though that's not strictly EV related. But
They want to fix. Well, I guess we could go through some of these really quick. Let's go to that because how does this affect anything to do with?
see, I don't know. So this is this whole current administration's fixation on wanting to own the libs, so to speak. So now they're on a tirade against auto stop start, claiming everybody hates it and they want to fix it, which I interpret that as getting rid of.
Yeah.
But now, granted, I do in the
And
cars
this is
I've
on a lot of hybrids.
it's on a lot of cars,
Yeah.
period.
And in fact, I believe it's what categorizes some cars as a mild hybrid.
Yeah, yeah.
It was tricks
Yeah.
like this that then qualified it
Well,
as
mild
mild
hybrid
hybrid.
is a step beyond auto stop start, but it's a variation of it.
Okay.
Um, so this is actually an increasingly common feature on a lot of new cars is auto stop start. So the thing is, it is kind of annoying. So at your light, it does take a split second when you take your foot off the brake for the engine to restart.
Some are really good at it. Some are like you're
Some are
releasing the
really
brake
good.
and it
Yeah.
instantly is started. You're not even off the brake yet
Yeah,
and the
it's like
vehicle is
basically like
started.
hybrids. It's like
Yeah.
that quick.
Yeah.
But
Others are bad.
others
Others
it
I've
kind of
driven.
cranks a
Yeah.
little like
Yeah. I've driven some others where I've been on the gas before it goes burp and off we go.
yeah. So yes, it can be a little annoying to drive, but from an empirical like objective standpoint, it makes a measurable difference in fuel consumption.
Yeah.
So that's been proven. So from that standpoint, it's successful. Now, the drivability and like the user experience, I mean, that's you could make your point with that. Um, Some BMWs, when the earlier implementations of this, I think they put in too small of a 12-volt battery. So this feature actually killed the battery since it was cycling so much.
I've wondered
That
about that in stop-start traffic.
yeah,
But there are different ways of doing it. I haven't really looked into this, but there's different ways. Some vehicles will actually use a starter. Some of them use
the flywheel,
the flywheel, yeah, and
like on hybrids. Yeah.
or yeah, and it pauses the engine and can quickly pick
Yeah,
up
it
on the exact
basically
cylinder.
attaches a small electric motor to the flywheel.
Yeah.
So, like, do you remember the Ram had the e-torque? Do you
Hmm.
remember that at all?
Yep.
I think they offered on both the V6 and the Hemi, but it's kind of the same idea. It's like it integrates they have this thing called a starter alternator that just basically combines the two. So it's basically like a reversible motor thing. Anyway, so EPA said they're going to fix stop start, whatever that means. I don't really care. I mean, I think if anything, some are speculating they may mandate like a kill or override switch. So if it annoys you and you don't like it, you can permanently disable it. If you'd rather get a few more miles per gallon, keep it on. That
Yeah,
seems like a
I
fair
believe
compromise
some of
to
the
me.
trucks, maybe I'm making this up too. I thought some of the big trucks for towing had a disable on it because it
Mhm.
really doesn't work
In
for
tow
towing.
mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was Tomo disabled it. I can't remember.
Yeah. So
Uh,
I don't know. I don't really care. One more reason to get an EV if you know, to
so
look at it that way.
Mercedes 1000 horsepower AMG EV super sedan, all of this, whatever, make an expensive car. That's fine.
Yeah.
What this reminded me of though is whatever happened to that C-Class thing that they had. Remember the long tail? They had, wasn't that Mercedes had a long tail concept that did like 800 miles on a
Oh, and it had
charge?
like air cooled batteries and all this stuff.
Yeah, whatever
Yeah.
happened to that? Where's that
I don't know. That's
technology?
not sexy. 1,000 horsepower is sexy. 600 miles. Yeah, cool. Nerd.
Yeah, uh does this affect Lucid? Like is that really
I don't know
what?
why it would. Are Mercedes and Lucid tied up somehow?
No, as far as sales go. Lucid struggles and they're with the Sapphire and
Uh,
is that if you've got the choice
I don't
between a
see.
thousand
Okay, so
horsepower
really quick, and
unknown.
I know we want to wrap this up,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
but we could go on a whole rabbit hole discussion about AMG. I've always thought the AMG core customer, and some researchers actually kind of validated this. They were so I think it was last year or the year before the C class they switched from V8 to a four-cylinder hybrid, and on paper, objectively, it performed or outperformed the V8 model, but sales were like in the toilet
Hmm.
because everyone was like, "Hey, where's the V8? I want a
Yep.
V8."
Yep.
And they just couldn't sell them, and nobody wanted it. And the salesmen were like, "Well, this is just as fast as last year's model." It says, "Yeah, but it doesn't sound the same," and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't. I mean, as weird as this sounds, I don't know if the Lucid Air and like the AMG EVs really. I don't know if it's even the same customer.
Hmm.
I don't know.
I bet Lucid's hoping they're not the same customer too.
Well, so that'll be our next podcast episode. We'll discuss that maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. So I'd like to wrap this episode up. And I would put a little bow on it, but I can't think of what the bow would
Yeah.
be. So instead, I will say thewhatcar.com/store help support the blog and the podcast by purchasing some
Be a
t-shirts.
merchandiser.
Be a merchandiser of this podcast. Everything we talked about perhaps will be in the show notes if I remember to put it there. And there being the website, there being the
YouTube channel.
YouTube channel, thewhatcar.com. No, gosh, I'm awful.
That's the store.
YouTube.com/at the
The Watt
Watt Car.
Car. But most importantly, thewhatcar.com/store.
Yes.
Merchandise.
Yes, get your merchandise right there. And I don't know who wants to advertise. No, not CATL. Xiaomi. There you go.
Xiaomi. Come
I'll
on.
take and we have a tariff on this stuff too. So if you want to come in at like the $5,000 level, there's 100% tariff on it. So it's actually $10,000. But half of it's tariff, so don't
Well,
worry about that.
That's okay. We'll give you lifetime sponsorship.
All right, next week, same as it ever was. I think more EVs, less plug-in, less mild hybrid talk, perhaps. I'd not heard that, so I was curious. This is the problem with being like a car nerd, is like boom, squirrel. Let's talk about
New
this
shiny
technology.
thing.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
See you later.
Next week.